Hello and welcome to another edition of Iowa's Agenda, cable television's public affairs program about the issues faced by Iowa's General Assembly, that's our legislature, and the people who make those decisions. Today we have two leaders from the House of Representatives to talk about where we are mid-session, toward the end of session, what bills are still to be brought up. We're post the first funnel week, and we welcome today the Speaker Pro Tem of the Iowa House, from Clinton in her 7th term, a Democrat, Bukta. Thank you for being with us.
Nice to be here.
And Christopher Rants from Sioux City, a Republican who has served as Speaker of the House, Majority Leader, Minority Leader. Christopher, thanks for coming today.
Hey, I take any invitations these days. I just sit on the back row now, so.
Well, we won't talk about that anymore, but you do have you're in the minority now in the Iowa House of Representatives. The numbers aren't too bad for the Democrats, you would think. They're having a little trouble passing some legislation, so the minority must be having some impact. Actually,
I don't think the minority is having an impact when it comes to that. I think the issues are having an impact. The Democrats have been able to move through a lot of legislation, but the sort of 4 big labor bills that are out there, be it prevailing wage, doctor shopping, guiding right to work, or the open scope bargaining for Chapter 20 for all public employees, there have been a handful of Democrats that have chosen to, in my opinion, do the right thing and be opposed to the legislation. But that's not because the minority, and the minority Republicans have been opposed to all of it, but we don't have the votes. I mean, it really comes down to 6 Democrats who've chosen to not support that kind of left-leaning labor agenda.
Well, Representative Bukta, we're going to go back to those labor bills, but first, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to say the Democratic Party has always been known to be under a big tent. Everybody in our party is not left-wing by any means. We have many people in the middle, and we have some people who feel that in conscience or because of their constituency, they can't vote for some of these so-called labor bills. So that's the reason for the 6 people. It's not a defiant type of thing, I don't believe. I think it's just that it's either their personal belief or, as I said, their constituency.
Well, what happens now, since we're talking about this issue, we will. What happens to those people who are resisting something that the Speaker Murphy obviously wanted to pass, and he spent all weekend keeping the voting machine open? Is there retribution? Do you get these folks in caucus and try and convince them? Or is it just, well, too bad, you can't support our bill?
Oh, a little bit of both. There was no bashing of people who did not vote the way the 50 of us did. But there was encouraging them to do so, but when they couldn't do it, they couldn't do it. Now, there was one disappointment, and that was one person who said he would vote for the bill and did not. That is very hard for me to take. The others, we knew where they were. That's a different story. I might not like how they vote, but I respected them for saying they would not vote for it. But for someone to give his or her word and then not follow through on it was a big disappointment.
And I will say this in Representative Bukta's defense. Having been in the majority, there have been times where we didn't get the votes that we were anticipating that we were going to get, and when you have a surprise, that's disappointing. I think the key difference is that a week and a half ago, the treasurer of the Iowa Democratic Party came out and said that they were going to primary those Democrats. On a taping of another news show, he's one of the elected leaders of Iowa's labor movement, but he's also the treasurer of the Iowa Democratic Party, saying that because these people didn't vote the way that the Democratic Party wanted them to, that they were going to be primaried for that case. So I hope that what Representative Bukta said earlier, that people can vote their conscience, I think is the right thing to do. I would certainly hope that those people wouldn't suffer primaries because they voted in their constituents' interests.
And I might ask you, have your party members ever suffered primaries?
Not by the party, not by our party. In fact, when special interest groups challenged our members, our party, at least under my leadership, our party defended every single one of our members who ever faced a primary challenge.
Well, we did that last time. We had members who were challenged in the primaries, and we did defend them, and we did fund them from our Truman Fund, as you would from your Eisenhower Fund. I really don't know how to comment on that, but the chair of the Democratic Party is going to primary them. I don't know yet. We have not discussed this in leadership, and I don't know what our reaction to that's going to be.
And it was the treasurer, not the chair.
Treasurer.
Now, why are these bills so important to the Democrats in the House? And which bill do you think is most important? Was it the prevailing wage, or is it choice of doctor or fair share or something else?
Well, it depends on how the bill's written. I think prevailing wage we thought would be maybe the easiest one to get passed. It's paying a fair wage to people in a region or a county as the region around them. Now, where I'm from, I'm right on the river. Across the river is Illinois. They're paid a higher wage than Iowans are. So if we're going to do it regionally, then the workers in Iowa would receive the same amount that the workers in Illinois are receiving. Choice of doctor, I have not seen that bill for a while, but I believe, maybe Krista or if you've seen it, I believe in that bill it has that the employer will be informed of a choice of doctor if a certain employee wishes to go to that doctor.
And this is for a workman's comp issue?
Yes, and not to shop around. I know they refer to it as doctor shopping, but I don't refer to it in those terms. I refer to it as choice of doctor. There was another part of the bill at one time that said there could be a list of doctors that the employer had that people could choose from. Well, I don't think there's anything really wrong with that.
Well, let me tell you what's wrong with both of the bills.
Okay.
Okay. They're both massive tax increases. I mean, they're both massive tax increases. The prevailing wage bill, which would apply to all public projects in the state, it was so onerous, and Democrats in rural parts of the state acknowledged that it was a tax increase bill. That's why you carved out the rural communities and you left the urban areas of the state left to foot the tax increase. And on the doctor shopping bill, it will raise the workers' compensation tax rate in the state on employers by $120 million.
And why so?
Because of the increased cost. The cost for workers' compensation will rise for employers by over $120 million. And that's not me saying that. That's the actuaries saying that that's the fiscal impact of that particular piece of legislation. And this is absolutely the wrong time to be pulling $120 million out of the economy and taking away from employers that we would hope would be reinvesting in their business and trying to hire more people. Instead, we're going to take those dollars away from those employers. And that's why I think ultimately you couldn't get the 51 votes needed to pass that legislation.
And that's why we said this probably would be the most difficult. Not the tax increase, but the fact that the rural and the urban, I get you there. That's probably the reason this would be difficult to pass. I've said all along this would be the most difficult one of those four to pass.
Well, I hope getting right to work or collective bargaining is more difficult. But
I don't call that gutting the right to work either. That's
now that's that bill, which the Democrats call fair share and which Republicans call an end to right to work, would allow